Welcome to Friday Friends, RI Elder Info's weekly look at the organizations and individuals providing resources for Rhode Island seniors, caregivers, and professionals.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday Friends on this fabulous April 16th snowy morning. Thank you all for joining me today. For those of you who are just joining for the first time, this is Friday Friends, a production of RI Elder Info. I am Deb Burton, the founder and creator of RI Elder Info. It is the most comprehensive resource for seniors, caregivers, and professionals here in Rhode Island. So if you need help for yourself to be able to age independently, or if you're caring for someone, I encourage you to check out RI Elder Info. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. So all of our work is done through the support of our sponsors and our donors. If you find our content helpful, you can always just hit the little donate button. $1 can even make a huge difference in the world of nonprofit production today. So I encourage you all to take a visit to rielderinfo.com. But like I said, what we do is not possible without the support of our sponsors. So I have to give a big shout out to Oak Street Health. Great primary care practice for individuals on Medicare. They have locations in Warwick over by the Christmas Tree Shop, Stop and Shop Plaza, another one by the Old St. Joe's in Providence, and another on Branch Avenue over by the McDonald's, and one up in Woonsocket. They even provide transportation to their offices, and they also have the COVID vaccines available to the general public, so you don't need to be one of their clients in order to get the vaccine. Another one of our sponsors is Tamarisk Assisted Living Facility, a great little assisted living facility that gives your family a sense of being at home. They're located in Warwick, right over by the mall. I'd also like to give a huge thank you to D&B Media, who runs the back end of this whole production, as well as England Studio, who is responsible for maintaining the website and all the technology that RI Elder Info uses to reach folks on a daily basis. So today I am super excited by my guest, and it's going to be really important that you hit the like button and that you share this information out with your friends, the groups that you're in, because what we're going to talk about is really important today to me as an individual, as well as to RI Elder Info. So today I would like to introduce Eric Bither of the Rhode Island Legal Services Elder Protection Project.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Eric. How are you? Good.
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you. I know some of our promo had said Steve Bagagian was going to be on. I know Steve got called for court, so I appreciate you being able to jump right in.
Absolutely.
So can you share with us, what is Rhode Island Legal Services? Like, what do you do as a whole? And what is the Elder Protection Project?
Certainly. So Rhode Island Legal Services is a nonprofit legal services provider. We're not affiliated with the state or federal government, but we do receive grants from both the state and the federal government, as well as some other nonprofits. So we've been in existence, I think this is our 52nd year, my 8th year with the program. And so we have a number of projects that are consistent and some that are changing depending on the grant sources. But predominantly we deal with federally subsidized housing. Right now we're dealing with some private housing and conditions cases. We have a low-income taxpayer clinic. We have a consumer division that helps people if they're having financial issues, debt collection practices, that sort of thing. A big family law center. So we have a number of different programs that are available to assist individuals. And one of the nice things about the different grant funding sources is that it's not all income based. So for instance, I work in the Elder Protection Project, and we do have a grant from the federal government that's allowing us to assist people basically age in place. The same thing that Rhode Island Elder Info is trying to do, is help people stay in place. And so what we focus on is assisting individuals who are self-neglecting who are being physically abused, who are being financially exploited, and we try and help them remain in place through different mechanisms with the court. And we do have a social worker on staff that helps with the social issues. And so the federal government, recognizing that this is an important issue, has waived the income guidelines. So for this particular program, you don't necessarily have to be a low-income individual to qualify for our services.
So you brought up a number of things that are really important. So Rhode Island Legal Services addresses the issues related to folks who are self-neglecting or who are being abused. Can you explain to folks what, even the most basic, what is abuse? What does it look like? And what is self-neglect? Because I think sometimes people aren't really sure, and it's kind of like, that's kind of how they've always been.
So it's mushy. I know that's everything in the law, but
that's really a good legal term, mushy.
Yeah, it's very mushy, because what could be elder abuse for one individual could be a free and voluntary choice by another. And so, it depends on the circumstances. In one instance, if, an individual is giving $100 a month to their son, and it's not, or child, it's not necessarily voluntary, but it's not necessarily impacting their bottom line. Voluntary may not be the right word, but they're choosing to give the money each month, but maybe not always for the best reasons. But if you can afford it, it's not necessarily abusive behavior, and it's not necessarily self-neglecting behavior. Whereas if you're about to lose your housing, you're self-neglecting, because that $100 a month is making a difference between you remaining housed and not, or buying food or medication. And so that's one of the things that we talk a lot about in our unit, and is this neglect? Is this abuse? I mean, the easy ones are certainly physical abuse, sexual assault, those sorts of things. But if somebody's making a free and voluntary choice to gamble each month and they can't pay the rent, that's not necessarily self-neglect. That's a decision being made by an adult on how they want to live their lives. And so it's a really kind of a moving target. What is abuse and what is self-neglect versus what are choices that we wouldn't necessarily make, but are certainly valid choices.
Yeah, I think that's something that, maybe some folks forget, is that we retain the right to make choices even as we age. And that includes making bad choices.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just because you turn 60, which is the age limit in Rhode Island for being considered an elder, doesn't mean that you don't get to, have self-autonomy. And I think that's the direction a lot of different programs are moving. The probate court system's trying to move, and the federal government's trying to recognize that we need to give the greatest amount of autonomy to the individual that we can.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes that means you are incurring the consequences of your poor choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So is it neglect? Is it self-neglect? It really depends. Situational.
Yeah, and I think you're right. A black eye, bruises, someone over medicated so that they will hold still while the caregiver goes to work. I think those become much more clear cut. I know one of the big issues that happens as we age. Well, actually, let me take that back. It's not even as we age. So erase that completely. Edit, delete. Can't do that in live stream. Is housing. Are you finding that more seniors need help with housing related issues?
That's been a problem, at least since I've been at Legal Services. I actually started in their housing unit, and there's been a housing shortage, or shortage of affordable housing in Rhode Island for, I think, a long time now. And it's certainly not unique to Rhode Island. I think that it is particularly tough in every category, especially if you're low income. So this certainly hasn't helped the pandemic. I think certainly renters are struggling, and individuals. We have lots of clients who in their, elder years are relying on rental income to, offset some of their Social Security income and other retirement income. And they're not necessarily being paid. So I think housing is certainly going to be a larger problem as we go forward. and even with the assisted living facilities and the nursing home facilities, hopefully now with the vaccine, they're more able to take individuals in, but they did have some difficulties during the height of the COVID pandemic, accepting individuals based on the need for COVID tests and those sorts of things. So hopefully it's going to stabilize, but I don't think in the near future.
Yeah, and I think, we don't necessarily recognize all the different impacts that insufficient housing can have, including the ability for some seniors to have the financial means to maintain their own home.
Yes.
Do you deal with, individuals who have been cited by the cities or towns that they have to repair their properties, or sometimes the bad landlords who aren't choosing to repair their properties, things like that?
So that's not something that our unit gets involved with so much. We do see it some, but that's, at least in our world, not, abuse or self-neglect. If the city's trying to enforce, housing code violations, that's not the city necessarily abusing or neglecting someone, but we do hear those stories, and we do have a foreclosure prevention unit that deals with that on some level. But housing code violations can force somebody to lose their home. The fines can be steep, especially when it's $100 per day. If you can't afford to have your house painted, you certainly can't afford the fines either. So people do, unfortunately, I think, come up against it, or just they put a lien on the property, and it destroys the value of the property and prevents individuals from either selling it or getting a reverse mortgage or allowing their kids to inherit when they pass. So it is an issue, especially when you can't do the work yourself.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so when folks are in need of, say, home and community-based services or long-term care, can Rhode Island Legal Services provide some help in completing the Medicaid application or any kind of estate planning, anything along those lines, designating healthcare powers of attorney, guardianships, anything along those lines?
So we don't get involved in the estate planning piece. It's very complicated, and there are plenty of professionals that do it here in the state. I know it's not cheap, but it's beyond the scope of what we're able to handle. Estate planning. We do, in very limited circumstances, help with the LTSS application, and that's something that a lot of private practice individuals do, and lots of other social service agencies. I think a lot of CAP agencies are available for that. So we spend a lot of time in court. We do have a social worker that does help if it's related to the abuse case specifically, and it's necessary to either get somebody out of the house or preserve their housing in the nursing home facility so they're not going back into an abusive situation. But it's not something that we predominantly focus on, particularly when it's not an area that we practice in. It's dangerous to travel in waters that you're not familiar with sometimes. So it's best left to those who are the experts in the field.
Yes, I completely understand. So does Rhode Island Legal Services, do you work with what's called the Safe Haven program?
Through Elizabeth, St.
Yeah,
Elizabeth.
through St. Elizabeth's?
Work with, not necessarily collaborate with on occasion. Certainly, I mean, we've recommended that people contact them for emergency housing. And as you know, there were lots of different events and venues prior to COVID where you could sort of informally communicate about what was going on in the community. And that's unfortunately stopped due to COVID. So we work with a number of different agencies, but on a case-by-case basis.
Okay. And how are you finding that the practice has changed in the last year with COVID?
Well, it's become a lot harder, that's for sure. And certain things are better as well. I mean, certainly we've all become much more familiar with Zoom technology. I think the court's done a great job adapting and implementing different technological resources so that people can participate from home, so that they're not running the risk of COVID. It's much harder when you can't meet with an individual face to face, and certainly our client base, I think, has been rightly so, more scared to go out and interact and maybe take advantage of some of the programs and services that are available to them because of COVID and the risk of of being infected, so I think it's unfortunate you have to make a choice between going to the court in person to get a restraining order and potentially contracting COVID or staying with an abuser that you might not otherwise. So it certainly made choices more difficult for elders, and they may be putting up with things that they wouldn't otherwise tolerate or have to tolerate because, you're weighing the risk of catching COVID or not. So.
Yeah, I totally understand. But I'm glad that there's still resources available,
Yes.
and in a different way. I mean, that's really the blessing through all of this. I think, we've all had to find new ways,
Yes.
and in that way,
Absolutely.
COVID has caused a lot of innovation. I just wanted to mention real quick, Lisa Marie had a question about how do you go about getting a senior person who's in rehab a COVID shot?
So that's something I don't know.
So
and it's kind of a moving target, as I understand. The state has different age groups. I know at one point I believe they were going into these different facilities and actually bringing the shot to them. But I think it would be best to talk to the rehab facility. I mean, they just took Johnson & Johnson off the market. So I think that's in flux as well. It depends on availability and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So Lisa Marie, I would just say give the facility a call, and you can also call Rhode Island Departments of Health facilities regulations. Their number is 401-222-5200. And what I'll do is I'll drop that in the chat when we're done here, so you'll have that. And Joan Marie had a question: where would I get information on guardianship or conservatorship for my husband? I think a lot of times people don't realize that once a person is no longer able to make their own decisions, that you're really kind of in a pickle. So would you be able to talk about that a little bit?
So that's another area that we don't practice a lot in the probate courts. It's all sort of tied into the estate planning, and there are 32 cities and towns, and each one of them has their own probate court here. And so it is very difficult. If you no longer have the capacity to sign a power of attorney document, then you're in the position where you need a guardian in the state of Rhode Island to make those decisions on your behalf. And it can be a costly and time-consuming proposition. So you'd have to file a petition with the probate court asking them to appoint an individual as the guardian and get court approval in order to do that. So, there are private practice attorneys that handle that. I'm not sure how much it costs, but, if the individual needs it, unfortunately, that's the process. So we do recommend that people get the powers of attorney and then the durable power of attorney for medical decisions in place before the individual loses their capacity, because without that, the only recourse is the guardianship. And as with anything in the courts, it takes time to set that up, and you could be looking at 2 to 6 months, if no one's fighting over who gets to be the guardian, because the court needs to give notice to people. So if you need something quick, you don't have the power of attorney or the ability to make the medical decisions, and they're contested issues, it's very problematic. There's no rushing the process.
Right. And I know in order to get a guardianship, everybody is assumed to be able to make their own decisions, which goes back to the right to make bad decisions, until a physician makes the determination that they are not medically able to make their own decisions. And guardianship is, I was just having a conversation about them yesterday. It's kind of the nuclear option, because a full guardianship strips someone, all of their rights to make decisions about their life away. So sometimes there's options like supported decision making, where, perhaps individuals can have things explained to them in a manner that that works best for their comprehension, and they can provide consent for things. But you'd start with the physician and have a full medical evaluation done. And then you would apply, I believe, in the probate court in which the individual lives.
Yes, that's exactly right. They do it's a decision-making analysis tool that the physician is supposed to complete. and then it gets submitted to the court in the town where you live, and then they put it down for a hearing. And you're right, there are different tools that are available, and I think the probate courts are moving away from full guardianship to more limited guardianship. There are people who can certainly make decisions about their own social lives that don't need someone to make those decisions for them, but they're struggling with their financial decisions, so they need someone in charge for financial reasons, or social reasons. But that, you're right, once somebody is under a full guardianship, they lose their right to make social decisions, medical decisions, financial decisions, and that's a really big step for a court to take. So you're basically stripping somebody of all their rights, and they're moving away from doing that as much as possible.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that that's a good thing. I mean, we all want to retain our rights for, and our ability to make decisions to the extent we can. Yeah. No, so when you were first saying some of the things that, Rhode Island Legal Services does, one of the things you mentioned was tax assistance, tax preparation assistance. Can you speak more about that?
So they don't do the tax preparation assistance. There are a lot of sites that do taxes, but they do taxes for the low income individuals throughout the state. So what our low income taxpayer clinic does is assist individuals who are having tax problems, and only with the federal government, but they do things like file innocent spouse relief, or if a tax form was incorrect and the IRS is claiming that they owe money that they don't necessarily owe for a valid reason, we can help with that. So it's more the legal end of things as opposed to tax preparation. So they have a number of tax clinics throughout the state that assist with that.
So what you guys do is really when you need the big dog to come in and say, wait a minute, this person has filed and here is the explanation. And when they really need that legal support, Rhode Island Legal Services can do that. That's great. Because you're right. There's the VITA program. AARP has a program. There's many different programs that can help you with the actual filing of your taxes, which got pushed out to May 15th this year.
Yeah.
But boy, when that IRS letter comes and says you did something wrong, I would imagine that's got to be kind of heart stopping.
Well, and I think it is for a lot of individuals, and unfortunately what they do is ignore it. I think we all have a tendency to ignore bad news, and we get frozen, and inaction is really the worst thing, because the penalties and the interest, I don't know a lot about it, but I do know the penalties and interest can be worse than the tax liability. So it's important to not ignore those letters, and certainly contact an organization like ours. Even, we don't like to turn people away. We don't always handle issues, but certainly we can point people in the right direction. Over 50 years of being in the community, and we have a lot of attorneys that have a lot of experience at Rhode Island Legal Services. Generally speaking, they can point you in the right direction and try and find you the help you need if we don't handle a situation. So, and it's free. I don't know if I mentioned that at the beginning, but we do provide free legal services. So all it is time for your phone call.
Yeah. And I think that that's really something to say again, is Rhode Island Legal Services are free. And if you can't help, you'll point someone in the direction of an organization that can help.
We do the best we can. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we get lots of calls that aren't necessarily legal issues, but social issues,
Right.
And we do try, and there are different state agencies and local administrative agencies that can help, nonprofits here and there that are better suited to serve those kind of problems and those needs.
And you have an amazing social worker.
We do. Yes. We're very fortunate to have her. She's helped with a lot of issues, certainly.
Yeah. It's one of those things that a lot of times the social, the economic, the legal, they all roll into one package called the client.
Well, absolutely. And that's one of the trends that our executive director's been taking us in, is a holistic approach to legal services. And that's why he's pushed to have the social worker involved. She works on a number of different projects, but you're right. You can save somebody's housing, but that doesn't necessarily take care of the social issue. Do they have, or if we wind up getting a restraining order against somebody, well, now they've lost income. can they purchase the food, and the social worker can try and put resources together for food stamps or, different programs that we may not be aware of, and try and help them, make up that lost income so that they're not left hanging. I think that's the hard part with a lot of domestic violence situations, is you're relying on that individual either for help with your medical needs or financial needs. And when that individual is gone, who steps in and takes over that role? And so that's the choice a lot of people are in is, yes, I'm being abused, but I do need a roof over my head. I need food to eat, and who's going to take me to my doctor's appointments if this person's no longer part of my life? And so that's where our social worker steps in and tries and fills those voids.
Yeah, and I just want to tell all the viewers out there that if you or someone you know is being abused, please reach out for help, because, like Eric was saying, you might have that feeling that there is no place to go for a roof over your head or for food, but I can tell you that there is help available. And I can also say that the social worker at Rhode Island Legal Services is awesome. And many of us work together to get people connected with the resources they need. Don't feel like you need to stay in an unsafe situation. Please reach out, please.
Absolutely.
That's the big one.
The state takes it very seriously as well. So there are a lot of resources that the state's putting in place, and a lot of nonprofits that are trying to deal with the situation. So being a small state, I think people do know each other in the community. I mean, we've all been to different meetings together and different trainings. And so, everybody's pulling in the same direction. So it is a nice community to work in. Work is difficult, certainly, and challenging, but it's a good group of people that are out there trying to help the elders in Rhode Island.
Yep. Adela is giving it a shout out. I love being a RI Legal Services social worker. I love our team.
Well, I didn't know she was on there, so I would have said that anyway, Adela.
You guys do have a great team. So one of the things that I'm wondering is, you provide all of these services. So just to remind everybody, you provide resources for, well, I'll let you remind everybody the resources in case they came on late, what resources you provide at Rhode Island Legal Services.
Sure. And so it is constantly changing, like you said, depending on the grant funding and resources. But, I'm in the Elder Protection Project, helping people over 60, but we do have the low income tax clinic. We have a housing unit that's dealing with traditionally more subsidized housing, federally subsidized housing, but as I understand, they have some grants for private housing, and dealing with some conditions cases as well if people are living in substandard housing. We have a consumer unit that helps with debt collection issues, and sometimes our unit or their unit can file bankruptcy if individuals are being overwhelmed with debt. We have a foreclosure prevention unit, which unfortunately may see an uptick in clients once the CDC moratoriums go away and the forbearance for home mortgages is no longer in place. So we also have a unit that helps with public benefits. So they deal with the Medicaid applications, more the denials and the hearings rather than filling them out. They also deal with the SNAP program, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And again, that's more of the denial piece, where they attend hearings when people have been improperly denied or their benefits have been reduced improperly, which was a problem here in Rhode Island when they switched over to the new computer program. They were very busy, unfortunately, during that time, trying to assist people to get their benefits back on track. So there are a lot of different programs there, and like I said earlier, if we don't handle it, we usually know somebody in the area that might be able to assist. So,
okay. And what's someone's first step if they need your step?
That's it. Yep, just call.
And what number should they call?
It's 401-274-2652, and that will get you to our receptionist. So they can certainly say, this is my issue, and we have an intake system where the receptionist sends it to the appropriate unit. So we are busy. Don't give up if you don't get through immediately. It's one individual for, I think we're up to almost 30 lawyers at this point. So, you know, it's a pretty big firm. But certainly you can give a call. We do have a website. People can check for information, but it's free. So there's no harm in calling and just asking.
So 1 to 30. So they can call 401-274-2652.
Yes.
If the receptionist is on the phone, which is certainly possible, I can say leave a message, and you guys really are great at calling back. I know I've left messages and I get a call back really quickly, and it's very impressive. So, are you guys a nonprofit?
Yes. Yep. We're a nonprofit, so we're not affiliated, and that's one of the, I think, confusing things. People think that we work for the state or that we're a department of the Division or Office of Healthy Aging now, or that we're part of the federal government. We're not. We're not affiliated with them at all. We do work, you know, with them, but we're not a part of the state agencies. So it's a nonprofit organization.
And so, if somebody has to say, argue with a state agency about their Medicaid, approval or denial or service and benefits, Rhode Island Legal Services doesn't have a conflict with being able to be on that individual side against a state agency if necessary.
No, they love that. But it's a dedicated staff. So yeah, absolutely. No, there's no conflict of interest. We're not, we fight a lot with not fight, but we certainly argue against state agencies, over different legal issues. So it's not like we're representing the state on one side and fighting with the state on the other. It's completely independent.
Good. That not having a conflict of interest is huge. And are you able to provide services to individuals who may be in nursing homes or assisted living facilities?
Depending on the issue, I mean, certainly the Ombudsman program and the Alliance for Better Long-Term Care deals with those issues, but we do step in on occasion. They have reached out to us when it's beyond the scope of what they really deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So we do work with them. We've handled a few cases where an individual is being evicted from a nursing home for various reasons, but really they're the experts in that particular arena. So they've been doing it for a long time. Their advocates go to those hearings all the time. So they really deal with more the nursing home issues. If there's a side issue that's causing the individual to not be able to pay for their nursing care, and they think that they're being abused or financially exploited, and that's the reason that they're not able to make the payment, somebody's stealing from them or misappropriating the funds, and they can reach out to us and we try and deal with that piece.
Yep. Well, this is great. So as a nonprofit, what kind of help do you need? Do you guys have fundraisers going on? Do you need volunteers? Do you need cash donations? What would help support your programs?
Yeah. So fundraising has kind of been down this year. Obviously, we usually try and do an annual celebration where people can come and celebrate. That's one of our big fundraisers. It usually happens in June. Hasn't happened the past 2 years. Well, I don't believe it's happening this year. Certainly didn't happen last year because of COVID, but we're always looking for volunteers, and it's not necessarily that you have to have a legal background in order to participate. I mean, we have some college students that have come in and helped with various things like helping design the website or making copies or, doing just different things. And individuals who are interested in going to law school have come in to volunteer to see if they want to do the whole law school experience. They're very open to volunteers. Certainly could always use financial donations. We are lucky to live in a state that's very generous, I think. Certainly the private bar and has stepped up in a lot of different situations to make donations. So, we're very fortunate, but certainly, every dollar counts. So if anyone is interested in donating, certainly feel free.
And when people do approach you, so Sandy Stewart asked, is there a cost for your services?
Not for our services. Sometimes there are fees, different fees that individuals do have to pay, but they're more like if you're filing a bankruptcy, you have to pay for the bankruptcy filing fee. Or if you need a constable service, there are things that we don't necessarily cover, but the legal services themselves are free.
Yep. And the rest of Sandy's question was her mom is having an issue with the Rhode Island Division of Taxation regarding real estate taxes. Her reduction in taxes for being a senior was taken away. Maybe her mom is aging in reverse and she's really 21 now. But is that the kind of thing that Rhode Island Legal Services can help with, assuming Sandy's mom did not reverse her age?
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing that we can look into. That maybe it's not necessarily self-neglect, but it's certainly a problem that will prevent somebody from aging in place. And to the extent that perhaps, I don't know the circumstances, but if Sandy's mom forgot to file the information, that could conceivably be self-neglect. If she was having memory issues, that would fall within our category. So certainly she could reach out to us, contact our office, and our paralegal would contact her to get the information. And the way our unit works, I think most of the units, we have weekly meetings where we discuss all the cases that have come in and decide whether or not they fit within the priorities of our particular unit, and then assign the cases to the attorneys.
Awesome. And to reach out, that's the 401-274-2652.
Yes. And
Awesome.
Generally speaking, if you say that the individual's over 60, that comes right to our unit, but one of the things we do need to speak with the individual, the senior themselves, just to make sure that they want our help. Not everybody does. We've certainly had children call and say my mom or my dad or my grandfather's doing X, Y, and Z, and I don't think it's great. And then you call the individual, like, I don't know why you're calling. I don't want anything to do with you. I've got this handled. And it's like, that's fine.
Right. Absolutely.
So we do encourage the individual. We do need to speak with the individual before we take on any sort of representation, but we do talk.
And everything that you do is confidential, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Protected by the attorney-client privilege. Yes.
Awesome.
And so that's why it's so important to speak to the individual, because this is their case, their situation, their life.
Yep. Eric, I'm so glad you came on today. We had, great conversation, between us, but we've got a lot of folks asking questions in the chat that you've been able to address. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Well,
this has
so
been awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great.
People need to donate. Rhode Island Legal Services, go on your website to donate.
Yes, we do. I haven't been on in a while, but I'm pretty sure we have a donate button right on our website. We do have some other opportunities too. I think through Amazon, there is a program where, Amazon Smile, that's it. You can choose Rhode Island Legal Services as one of your funding sources or one of your donations if you make a purchase through Amazon Prime, or Amazon itself. So there are different ways.
Perfect, because we want to keep this program going. It's important. What you're doing is important for everyone. So thank you very much, Eric, for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So everybody, we just had a great conversation. The beauty is that this is recorded, so you can hit rewind. Also, please read through the chat because there's a lot of information that's coming through the chat right now. If you find this information helpful, I encourage you to go on rielderinfo.com and hit the donate button. Of course, I'm sure you've already liked this video and that you're going to share it out because I know that you know somebody who needs this information. So until then, I look forward to seeing you all next week, and please share this video out. Stay well and see you next Friday.
If you like this video, please follow us on social media and subscribe on YouTube. For more information, visit rielderinfo.com or call 401-585-0509. If you have any questions, email deb@rielderinfo.com.